Hola, buenos días. Vamos a comenzar una nueva semana y un nuevo capítulo, el capítulo número 10. El capítulo número 10 se llama Un planeta para todos. So we're going to be talking about the environment, pollution, everything that has to do with taking care of our planet, animals and plants and nature and resources around the world, okay? So, un planeta para todos. Entonces, vamos a ver qué contenidos y objetivos tenemos aquí. We're going to learn vocabulary to talk about the environment, to describe the environment in general. We are going to also do a review of prepositions and what prepositions we use in Spanish and how they work, and prepositional pronouns. We are going to start with the past subjunctive, which is also to express recommendations and wants and doubts and emotions, but in the past. To talk about what we recommended or wanted or doubted in the past. Another kind of subjunctive we're going to be looking at is the past perfect subjunctive. Anytime we have anything that's called perfect, a tense, it's a two-word verb, okay? So the past perfect subjunctive. So to talk about actions that were completed before another action in the past. Then we are going to look at vocabulary for animals. And we're going to review the infinitive after prepositions. You know, when we use prepositions and when do we use infinitives after prepositions. We are going to finish the if clauses that we started in chapter 9. This is going to be part 2. We are going to be looking at some terms to talk about geography, some geographical terms, and we're going to end with the sequence of verb tenses. We have looked at a lot of different verb tenses, so now we're going to look at how they work in general, to look at the broad view of the sequence of events using verb tenses. ¿Okay? Muy bien. Entonces vamos a comenzar con el vocabulario para hablar del medio ambiente. Para hablar del medio ambiente. ¿Okay? El medio ambiente, the environment. The environment. El medio ambiente. Okay, so a lot of these are cognates, the words that you're going to see and recognize. Okay? Vamos a comenzar por el insecticida. El insecticida. Insecticide. And then we have pesticide, el pesticida, el pesticida. El fertilizante, fertilizer, el fertilizante, el fertilizante. El hábitat, the habitat. La deforestación, deforestation. La sequía, drought, lack of rain or lack of water, la sequía. La erosión, erosion, la sobrepoblación, overpopulation, el smog, of course that comes from smog, el smog, el humo, the smoke, el humo, is always silent. Y aquí abajo tenemos el contaminante, the contaminant, y el envase, Muy bien. Tenemos algunas otras palabras útiles aquí abajo, some other useful words. Los animales en peligro de extinción. That is a very long expression to say endangered species. So, los animales en peligro de extinción. El clima, the climate. El combustible, fuel. El combustible. El consumo, consumption. El daño, harm. El desperdicio. El ecosistema, the ecosystem. El ecosistema. El efecto invernadero, the greenhouse effect. El efecto invernadero. Invernadero is a greenhouse. Scarcity, la escasez. La infraestructura, infrastructure. La naturaleza, nature. El peligro, danger. El riesgo, the risk. Y la sustancia. Muy bien, so those are some other useful words to talk about the environment. Okay, vamos a la página 413, and we have some more useful words, some verbs and some adjectives. There are a lot of verbs that we can use when we describe or we talk about environment and the problems we're having with contamination and pollution and all that. Okay, so here are all the verbs first. Amenazar, to threaten. Amenazar. Conservar, that's a cognate. Cosechar, to harvest. Dañar, to damage or to harm. Desaparecer, desaparecer. Descongelar, to thaw. Desperdiciar, to waste. Destruir, to destroy. Destruir. Fabricar, to make or to produce. Hacer ruido, to make noise. Hacer ruido. Mejorar, to improve. Preservar, prevenir. Reducir, reemplazar. You know, the double E it sounds like just one E. Reemplazar. Rescatar, sobrevivir y sostener. Sostener. So those are some verbs, los verbos. Vamos a ver a unos adjetivos. And as always, adjectives have to agree in gender and number with the nouns that they are describing. Okay? Árido o árida, arid or dry. Biodegradable, biodegradable, that's a cognate, biodegradable. Climático o climática. Ecológico. Exterminado. Renovable y tóxico. Tóxico, okay? Muy bien, so this is the vocabulary. We're going to go now to, we're going to do a review. We're going to be looking at preposiciones, prepositions, and prepositional pronouns. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that review. Okay, so in the back of your book, in Appendix 3, on page A38, you have a review. This review that I'm taking out of the previous book. Okay, but this is what you have there in the back. Las preposiciones y los pronombres preposicionales. Okay, so we learned how to use the prepositions por y para, but we have a lot of other prepositions and prepositional phrases, just like we do also in English. Okay, so this is a list of the common prepositions in Spanish, actually pretty much all of them, that some of them may or may not be new to you, but we're going to go over them. We have a, which can mean to or at, to or at. When you say I'm going to or I'm at, okay, you have to be careful with using at for at, because it's not always when you're saying I'm at a place, you don't use you use en. Okay, you use en. Okay, yo estoy en mi casa, o yo voy a estar en la clase. Okay, so with a we have to learn how to use it right. A la derecha de, to the right of. A la izquierda de, to the left of. And of course, if we have a noun that comes after de, this de will need to agree, right? If it's a singular and masculine, it would be the él, so we know that the él needs to be combined to form del. Okay, so if you say it is to the left of, I don't know, the dresser, for example, we're going to need to combine, okay, de plus él to form del, okay. A la izquierda de, let's see, el armario. Armario is singular and masculine, so we're going to say a la izquierda del armario, okay? So with the preposition de, okay, you have to keep in mind what comes after it. If it's a noun, this has to agree, okay? If this were feminine, and then we would say de la cama, for example, next to or to the right of the bed, okay? And the same thing with plural, de los or de las, okay? Acerca de, about, afuera de, outside of, al lado de, antes de, cerca de, con, with, de, can mean of or from or about, debajo de, delante de, dentro de, desde, después de, detrás de, en, encima de, enfrente de, entre, hasta, lejos de, para y por, según, sin y sobre. Okay, so these are the prepositions that we use in Spanish. Bien, vamos a ir a la próxima. Okay, so here are some examples. El centro de reciclaje está a la derecha del supermercado. See, this would be de plus el, okay, del supermercado. La alcaldesa va a hablar acerca de los problemas que tenemos con la protección del cocodrilo cubano. Vimos un montón de plástico encima del papel. That would be de el papel, so de and el combined to form de. Quieren sembrar flores enfrente del vertedero. The same case here. El proyecto no puede tener éxito sin el apoyo del gobierno local. So not all the prepositions require de after them. Okay, some of them, if you notice in the list in the previous page, some of them don't need the word de. Okay, and then we have the prepositional pronouns. If you remember when we learned the indirect objects, when you said to me, the direct and indirect object, to me, you know, this is pleasing, or to them. So to clarify or to emphasize, you say a mí, or para mí, or para ti, or para él. Okay, so those are called prepositional pronouns. Okay, so these are the pronouns that follow prepositions. And these are the same as the subject pronouns, except for the first two, me and ti. So you see the other ones are all the same as the subject pronouns that we use all the time, yo, tú, él, except for the first two. Para mí, or a mí, and a ti. And then if we want to say for him, or for her, or for you, or for us, we say para usted, para él, o a ella, para nosotros, para ustedes, a ellos o a ellas. ¿Okay? Y tenemos aquí algunos ejemplos. Tenemos unos ejemplos aquí abajo. Para mí es muy importante, para mí es muy importante resolver el problema de la lluvia ácida. O ¿qué candidato está sentado enfrente de ti? Okay, so me and ti are the only ones that are different from the others. All the others are the same as the subject pronouns. Se fueron de la huelga sin nosotros. Trabajamos con ellos. Okay. Now, when you want to say with or without, okay, there are two forms that are special, and they are with me and with you. Okay, with me and with you. Okay, so instead of just saying con mi, we have to say conmigo, which is a combination of con plus me, conmigo, with me. And the same with you, contigo, contigo. ¿Vienes conmigo al discurso? Sí, voy contigo. So with you and with me. With you and with me. Contigo y conmigo. Now, when this is with. Now, when we say without, we just use these forms. Sin mi y sin ti. Okay. So when you say without, we use just the pronouns. So when we say with, we say conmigo y contigo. Okay, so those are two special forms. Muy bien. Entonces, vamos a terminar aquí con el día número 1 y continuar mañana con el día número 2. Hasta mañana. Bueno, vamos a comenzar el día 2 con el imperfecto del subjuntivo. El imperfecto del subjuntivo. We have already been working with the subjunctive in the present and the present perfect subjunctive in 221 in chapter 4. Okay, so we use a subjunctive when we want to express recommendations and wants and doubts and emotions, and that can be done in the present tense or in the future or also in the past. Okay, so far we have used the present and the present perfect subjunctive. Okay, I'm going to go here to see if we can make sense out of this. Okay, so when we learn the present subjunctive, for example, we would say it's important that, let's see, make this a little bigger. We could say es importante que conservemos el medio ambiente. Okay? Es importante que conservemos el medio ambiente. So that's a subjunctive that you know. Right, so you start here in the present. Es importante, right, que conservemos. So it's important that we do something, okay, either here in the present or in the future. Or I recommend that you take care of the medio ambiente, okay. Te recomiendo que conserves el medio ambiente. So conservemos is the present subjunctive. Now, when we learn the present perfect subjunctive, we also started in the present, but we talked about something that was important that was already done. So we said, for example, es importante que hayamos conservado el medio ambiente. So, instead of saying es importante que conservemos el medio ambiente, we're going to express what is important that we have done. Okay, es importante que, okay, es importante que hayamos conservado. So that is the present perfect subjunctive, el medio ambiente. Okay, so we learned those two. It's important that we do something either now or in the future, and it's important that we have done something. Okay, so those are the two that we know. Now, el imperfecto del subjuntivo. El imperfecto subjuntivo, how does that work? It's used to refer to past events that can include events that were incomplete or hypothetical, unreal or indefinite, to use to express past wishes and doubts and suggestions. Okay, so it was important that we took care of our medio ambiente. Okay, para el artista, we have the example here. Para el artista era importante que se reciclara. So if we go back to our chart here, we are going to say Era importante, because we're not going to start here in the present, we're going to start the past. Era importante, something was important at that time, okay? So, era importante que recicláramos el medio ambiente. So that's how it's going to change now. Era, we're going to use, the main clause is going to be in the past. Era importante que recicláramos el medio ambiente. So something was important in the past. Or we can say, nos recomendaron que recicláramos el medio ambiente. Reciclar, no reciclar, conservar. Conserváramos. Era importante que conserváramos el medio ambiente. It was important that we conserved or took care of our environment, el medio ambiente. Okay, so there are the three that we already know. Okay, so let's go look at how we form the past, the imperfect of the subjunctive. We're going to go to the next page, and we're going to go first, before we look at the examples, we're going to look here to how to form the imperfect subjunctive. Okay, el imperfecto subjuntivo. Okay, both for regular and irregular verbs. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the third person plural of the preterite, the ellos form of the preterite. We're going to drop that ron. For example, we have conservar. The preterite in the ellos form is conservaron. So we're going to drop that. And we're going to that form, we're going to add the following endings. For yo, it's going to be irá. So, yo conservara. Tú rás. Tú conservaras. Era importante que tú conservaras el medio ambiente. Usted, él y ella, ra. Conservara, conservara. Nosotros conserváramos. Vosotros conservarais, ustedes, ellos y ellas conservaran. So that's for ar, okay? For ar. And if you notice, for and ir, it's exactly the same thing, okay? So all of the verb forms ar and ir are going to conjugate the same way. Take the third person plural of the preterite. We're going to drop that ron ending, okay? And to that root, we're going to add these endings. Okay, so that's how we form the imperfect of the subjunctive. So let's go back to the top now. Okay. So we have some examples here. El granjero dudaba. See, we are talking in the past, in the main clause now. Que la deforestación pudiera causar tanta erosión. So he was doubting something in the past. Okay. Los televidentes pidieron que hubiera más programas de temas ecológicos. So that was a request. They requested that there be more programs. Okay. Something in the past. Request or wish or doubt or whatever it is that we have been using the subjunctive with. But we're going to put the main verb of the main clause in the past, and we're going to use the imperfect of the subjunctive. Okay. The imperfect subjunctive can also be used to make polite requests or statements, using especially the verbs querer, poder, and deber. For example, when you say, "I would like to know," that would be a polite way to say. We can use this form of the subjunctive. Quisiera saber cómo este pueblo piensa rescatarse. Or when you say, I would like to, you go to a store and you say, I would like to see that shirt you have in the window. Quisiera ver, o me gustaría ver cómo este pueblo piensa. That's another way, me gustaría with the conditional. But we can also say quisiera. Quisiera ver esa blusa, okay? Quisiera saber, okay? So that to make polite requests or statements. O pudieras recomendarme un insecticida menos tóxico. Debieras ir a la conferencia sobre el medio ambiente. You should go, okay? Or could you recommend? So that's another possible use for the subjunctive in the imperfect. And we can also use the imperfect with ojalá when it means I wish. I wish means that it's something that it's not really possible. You're just wishing this something were true or real, but it's not. Okay. When you use it in the future, you in the present subjunctive, you say I hope that it doesn't rain. Then it is something possible, right? Ojalá que no llueva. But when you say ojalá and you use the imperfect subjunctive, you're expressing something that it's just not possible. You're saying, I wish we could do this. We can't, but I wish we could, okay? So, ojalá que pudiéramos rescatar los animales que casi están en peligro de extinción. So, to express, I wish, okay? Muy bien. Entonces aquí terminamos el día número 2. Get some practice with my Spanish lab, and tomorrow we will start with day 3. Hasta mañana. Bueno, muy bien. En el día 3 vamos a ver el pasado perfecto del subjuntivo. El pasado perfecto del subjuntivo. This is also known as el pluscuamperfecto del subjuntivo. Pluperfect of the subjunctive. Okay. So, like I told you before, anything that has the word perfect in it, any tense that has the word perfect in it, is going to be a two-word verb. Okay. So we're going to use the verb haber here conjugated, and here is going to we're going to use the past participle, the hado and ido. Okay, muy bien. So the past perfect subjunctive is used under the same conditions as the present perfect. Okay, remember the present perfect is haya and hado and ido, or hayas. So haya, etc. But it is used to refer to an event in the past prior to another event in the past. Okay, so anytime we use the subjunctive in the present with doubt and recommend and hope and wish, we can use it also in the past. Okay, so we're going to take, for example, let's take this example. Dudaba que ya hubieran comprado los productos biodegradables. So we're going to go, let's see, dudaba que ya hubieran comprado los productos biodegradables. So let's go here. If we are talking in the present, using that example, we would say dudo, like yo dudo, right? Let's see. Go back to here. Okay, so it would be yo dudo que los clientes compren productos biodegradables. Okay, so that would be the present subjunctive. Yo dudo que los clientes compren los productos biodegradables. Now, if we say I doubt that they have bought, okay, that would be the present perfect subjunctive. Yo dudo que los clientes hayan comprado los productos, etcétera, etcétera, biodegradables. Now, what we saw yesterday, we are talking about the past, the imperfect of the subjunctive. So you were going to have to put this verb in the past. Yo dudaba que los clientes compraran los productos biodegradables. So far, that's what we have seen, okay? So in the present, we say yo dudo que los clientes compren, either now in the present or in the future, que los clientes compren productos biodegradables. I doubt that they buy these products, okay? Or you can also say, I doubt that they bought. Yo dudo que los clientes hayan comprado. So that's why it's called present perfect, because it starts in the present, and what you do is you doubt that something happened in the past. Now, with the imperfect, we talk about something that you doubted in the past. So the verb in the main clause is in the past. Yo dudaba que los clientes compraran los productos biodegradables. So we're talking about something that happened in the past. Now, with the past perfect subjunctive, we are still going to talk about the past. Okay, so we're still going to say yo dudaba, but what you're doubting is something that happened prior to that in the past. So you doubted in the past that something else had happened before. Okay, so what you're going to say is, just let me go back. Yo dudaba que los clientes, that they had already done something before that, ¿sí? Hubieran comprado los productos biodegradables. Okay? Okay, so there we have the four subjunctives, ¿sí? Tenemos the present, the present perfect, the imperfect, and the past perfect, okay? ¿Sí? Ok, entonces vamos a volver al libro. Go back here to the book to see how we use this. Okay, so the past perfect is formed in this way. We are going to take the imperfect subjunctive of haber, which is this, plus the past participle, the hado and ido. Okay? Yo hubiera dañado, o tú hubieras sostenido, o usted hubiera sobrevivido. So these are not going to change with the persons. What is going to change is the haber. Okay? So those are the forms in the imperfect subjunctive. Yo hubiera, tú hubieras, usted, él y ella hubiera, nosotros hubiéramos, vosotros hubieras, y ustedes, ellos y ellas hubieran. Plus the past participle to talk about something that happened. I recommended that they recycled. Okay, so the past, something you did in the past, you recommended that they did something. Okay. Actually, that was not a very good example, but they regretted, okay, not recycling before. Okay, so the main clause is going to be in the past tense, but you're going to be talking about something that happened in the past, but before that. Okay, okay, so let's go look at other examples up here. A ver. Por ejemplo, sentíamos, we regretted, or we were sorry, actually we were sorry that el gobierno hubiera dejado que cortaran tantos árboles. We were sorry that the government had allowed them to cut so many trees. So you were sorry in the past that something had already happened before that. Esperaba que mis padres ya hubieran reciclado sus latas. So you were hoping in the past that your parents had recycled their cans. Okay? Y the example that we saw, dudaba que ya hubieran comprado los productos biodegradables. ¿Sí? That is why it's called past perfect subjunctive. Muy bien. Continuamos entonces. So that is the past perfect subjunctive, and we're going to go on to vocabulary for different kinds of animals. So when you go to the zoo, you're going to be able to identify them in Spanish, a variety of animals. Muy bien. Entonces vamos a comenzar por acá. Vamos a comenzar por el mono, the monkey, el venado, the deer, el venado, and a lot of these are cognates. El gorila, the gorilla, el gorila, el rinoceronte, la cabra. La cabra is the goat. La cabra. El pato, the duck. El pato. La iguana. La iguana is an iguana. El puma, that's another cognate. El tigre, sort of a cognate, it sounds like tiger. La paloma, it can be a dove or a pigeon. La abeja, the bee. El dinosaurio, la mariposa, the butterfly. El murciélago. El murciélago is the bat. La jirafa, the giraffe, with a J, okay? El loro, the parrot. El picaflor is a hummingbird. El camello, camel. El zorro, the fox. La ardilla, the squirrel. El gallo, is a rooster. El saltamontes, a grasshopper. El pingüino, a penguin. Let's scroll down here. El manatí, I really have no idea what that is. The book says actually that it is a manatee. I have never seen that word. Okay, so whatever this is. Looks like a walrus or something. Okay, el pulpo, the octopus. El tiburón, the shark. El lobo, the fox. El cangrejo, the crab. La tortuga, the turtle. La oveja, sheep. La ballena, it's a whale. Y la foca is a seal. La foca, ¿ok? Muy bien. Vamos a ver aquí si hay más vocabulario. Okay, so that is the end of our day number 3, el día número 3. Y vamos a continuar mañana con el día número 4. Hasta mañana. Muy bien, vamos a comenzar el día número 4. We're going to do a review of the usage of the infinitive after prepositions. Okay, in Spanish, every time you have a verb that follows a preposition, immediately follows a preposition, every time it must always be followed. It always must be in the infinitive form. Okay. So infinitive is going to be a verb that ends in ar, in er, or in ir, okay? So let's look at the examples here. Antes de, okay, so we have a preposition, antes de reciclar, in the infinitive. Okay, notice that in English we use the ing form, the present participle. In Spanish we do not use the present participle in this way. We can't say antes de reciclando. Okay, because in this case, antes de reciclar, before recycling, this ing form acts as a noun. Okay, it doesn't act as a verb. Grammatically speaking, it acts as a noun. But in Spanish, the ando and yendo are never ever used as a noun. Okay, so when what follows the preposition is an action, what follows the preposition has to be in the infinitive form. Here's another one. Después de pisar la hormiga, la niña empezó a llorar. After stepping, here again we use the ing form, but we don't in Spanish. We use the infinitive. And by the way, this review is in the back of your book again in Appendix 3. Es fácil decidir entre, preposition, entre reciclar y botar. And again, in English, we do use the ing form. It's easy to decide between recycling and throwing away. But in Spanish, that does not happen. Okay, we never put a ando, yendo form after a preposition. Never. Okay. Necesitamos trabajar con personas de todos los países para proteger. Para proteger, the infinitive. Okay? In English, it would be in order to, or to protect. In that way, it is an infinitive, to protect. Ganaste el primer premio por estar tan interesado en el medio ambiente. And here, again, we have the ing form after a preposition, which does not happen in Spanish. No podemos vivir sin trabajar juntos. Again, here in English, the ing, but not in Spanish. We cannot live without working together. Okay, every time after a preposition, if what follows is an action, we are going to use an infinitive form of the verb. Okay? Muy bien. Okay, so we're going to continue in your book, cláusulas de sí. A clause that starts with sí, with if, means that there's a condition there. Okay, so in the last chapter, we saw that we saw a couple, two or three cases where the clauses start with sí, and with the present indicative. Okay, sí plus the present indicative plus then, and present indicative again, or the future or the command. Okay, these if are things that can happen. For example, if you don't wear warm clothes in the winter, you get sick. Okay, or if you don't wear a coat when you go out today, you will get sick. Or if you like opera, go to the show tonight. Okay, with a command. Now, we can also use sí clauses to express something that is hypothetical. You know, if I were a millionaire, that's a hypothetical or contrary to the fact information. Okay, so that's another case when we can use the if clauses or the sí. Okay, so what is the formula to call it that way? The formula for these sentences. We have sí. We can have two cases, in the present or in the past. Sí plus the imperfect subjunctive plus the conditional. If we are speaking in the present tense about something that is contrary to fact or hypothetical. Okay. Por ejemplo, if I were, si fuera, imperfect subjunctive, Tarzán viviría, conditional, con los monos. If I were Tarzan, I would live with monkeys. Or we can say, if I had been, I would have lived. Okay, sí plus past perfect subjunctive plus the conditional perfect. So, si hubiera sido, if I had been, past perfect subjunctive, Tarzán habría vivido, conditional perfect, habría vivido con los monos. And here's another one. Si Fernando pudiera, we're talking in the present, if he could, he can't, but if hypothetically speaking, if he could, he would not hunt, no cazaría. Now, no cazaría, sacaría muchas fotos. Now we can say if he had been able to, si Fernando hubiera podido ir, if he could have gone, or if he had been able to, no habría cazado, habría sacado muchas fotos. Okay, the conditional perfect. A ver otro. Si encontrara unos huesos importantes de dinosaurio en mi jardín, sería famosa. If I found some dinosaur bones in my yard, I would be. Or in the past, if I had, si hubiera encontrado unos huesos importantes de dinosaurios en mi jardín, habría sido. I would have been famous. Okay, so those are hypothetical or contrary to fact, contrary to the reality. Okay, information, contrary to fact. Verían muchos pingüinos. They would si vivieran, if they lived. Si vivieran en el sur de la Patagonia. Or they would have seen. Habrían visto muchos pingüinos si hubieran vivido en el sur de la Patagonia. ¿Ok? Bien. Entonces, ese es parte 2 de las cláusulas de sí. Y aquí vamos a terminar con el día número 4. Muy bien, entonces hemos llegado al día 5 del capítulo 10. Vamos a ver algunos términos geográficos. Talking about geographic features. ¿Sí? Bien. Tenemos entonces por aquí arriba, vamos a comenzar con la bahía, the bay, la isla, the island, el pantano, the book calls it a marsh, so I guess we'll go with that. La llanura, the plain, la llanura, el desierto, the desert, el mar, the sea, el mar, as opposed to the ocean, el océano, it's not here, el océano, El mar, the sea, el océano, the ocean. El río, the river. El volcán, the volcano. El arrecife, the coral reef. La catarata, the waterfall. La catarata. La sierra. It can also be las sierras, the mountain range. La playa, the beach. El valle, the valley. Y el arroyo. Arroyo is more like a stream, smaller than a river. ¿Sí? Muy bien, entonces algunos términos geográficos. Ok, muy bien. Y para terminar el día de hoy vamos a ir a ver la secuencia de los verbos. La secuencia de los tiempos verbales. It's almost like a review or a summary of what we have seen with the subjunctive, when what happens with the subjunctive and the order of the tenses that we have been learning. Okay, and when to use the indicative and the subjunctive and how. See, okay, so we are going to look at what tenses go together, the subjunctive and the indicative and all the present subjunctive and the futures, and how. See? So, using the subjunctive, when in the main clause, which would be here the red, the verb is in the present indicative or the present perfect indicative or the future indicative, okay? In the main clause, the verb is always going to be in the indicative, okay? Or if the verb is a command, then in the subordinate clause, we're going to use the present subjunctive or the present perfect subjunctive, okay? The present subjunctive or the present perfect. So, for example, the present subjunctive is used when the action of the subordinate clause, of the blue here, occurs at the same time as the action in the main clause or after it, okay? So these two happen either at the same time or this one happens, it can happen after. Por ejemplo, insistimos, have the indicative, insistimos en que nuestros compañeros empiecen a reciclar el papel. Empiecen a reciclar el papel. We insist that our classmates begin to recycle paper. No hay nadie, indicative, que desperdicie tanto como mi tío. There is no one who wastes as much as my uncle. See? Okay, so in that case we have a present indicative, and here what we have is a present subjunctive. Let's see, go a little, let's go down. Bien. Okay. The present perfect subjunctive in the subordinate clause is used when the action of this subordinate clause occurs before the action in the main clause. Okay, so esperamos is in the present, right? We hope. Esperamos que todos nuestros compañeros hayan empezado a reciclar. So this action already happened. We hope that they have already begun to recycle paper. Esperamos que todos nuestros compañeros hayan empezado. So you have the present and you have the present perfect subjunctive that talks about something that has already started, that has happened before the verb in the main clause. No hay nadie que haya desperdiciado tanto como mis tíos. There is, present, no one who has wasted, in the past, as much as my aunt and uncle. Okay? Muy bien. Now, when the verb in the main clause is in the preterite, in the imperfect, or in the conditional indicative, then the imperfect subjunctive or the past perfect subjunctive are used in the subordinate clause, in the clause that uses the subjunctive. So, Roberto insistió, pretérito, en que fuéramos, okay, imperfect subjunctive, al volcán. Or, pediría, conditional, pediría que viajáramos, okay, con él cada semana. ¿Sí? Again, the imperfect subjunctive. And go to the next page. Bien. The imperfect subjunctive is used when the action in the subordinate clause occurs at the same time as the action in the main clause or after it. Okay, so, insistíamos, this is in the past, en que todos nuestros compañeros reciclaran el papel. So these two things happened at the same time. No había nadie que desperdiciara tanto como mi tío. So again, happens at about the same time. Now, the past perfect subjunctive is used when the action of the subordinate clause occurs before the action in the main clause. And this is what we saw earlier in this chapter. So the main clause, esperábamos, that's in the past. But what we're talking about in the subordinate clause is something that happened before this. Esperábamos que todos nuestros compañeros hubieran empezado a reciclar el papel. We hope that all of our classmates had begun already to recycle the paper. So this happened before, we hoped. Okay, we hoped that they had already begun. No había nadie que hubiera desperdiciado tanto como mi tío. There was no one, so that's the action, who had wasted another action before that as much as my uncle. Okay, so this is pretty much a summary of the subjunctives that we have learned and how to use them and what happens in the main clause and in the subordinate clause. Okay? Muy bien, entonces aquí terminamos con el día número 5 y con el capítulo número 10. Nos vemos la semana que viene. Chao.